What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. My name is Conrad. Today is February 25th, 2022, the year of our Lord. Looking up in the corner for a ding, and it's just me giving myself one. So, ding, ding. That is the correct date. How's your mattress? How's your mattresses doing, everybody? Did you have a good night's rest? Did you get your mattress out? What kind of mattress do you have? Tempur-Pedic? Got a Tempur-Pedic mattress? I don't know what to talk about today. I mean, I don't want to talk about the fact that if baseball doesn't solve their collective bargaining agreement by Monday, there'll be no regular season. Do you want to talk about that? Or do you want to talk about mattresses? Apparently that's going on. It's hard to get traction, you know what I mean, on a story like the collective bargaining agreement, which I have to assume, has something to do with, like, we don't want to play an extra game this year, and we want to make sure that it's like, nobody really cares about your guys' games, guys. There's a war starting, and you guys are just arguing with each other about, like, how many massages you get, How many free massages do you get if you go to Sandals Resort Club for baseball players? How many free massages do you get? It's really important to us. And, that's why we have a union. So we can stand up for our rights as professional baseball players. Okay? So, it is interesting that they can still do anything. I mean, that's the cool part about baseball in this country is, even though in my mind, baseball has not been relevant since the guys that did the steroids, since Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, and I guess Barry Bonds, Roger Clemente. You know what I mean? When those guys were taking juice, when those guys were getting jacked up on illegal muscle-building narcotics, like, and everybody knew it, but they would say things like, oh, we're just taking whey protein. You know what I mean? That's why I got this big zit on my forehead, because I'm just taking whey protein. I've just been taking creatine. I don't know. Sure. It's elephant creatine, but that's all it is creatine. And eventually Jose Canseco's like, no, those are illegal steroids that they're taking, and I give them all injections in their butts at every locker room. And that's why they're hitting 8 million home runs. And that was fun. That made baseball fun. And since then, it's just been like Debbie Downers, each season. Worse and worse. But, like I said, the cool thing is there's still 1 million people in this country that enjoy the sport. There's still maybe even 5 million people, which is a very small number of people in the grand scheme of things, but it's a tremendous amount of people and enough to, I guess, continue, and continue the facade that this activity should continue. You know what I mean? So it'd be nice. I mean, if I had 1 million people that subscribe to Con Radio's Patreon, I would be making $5 million a month. Now, sure, half would go to taxes and a quarter would go up my nose, but I'd be making $5 million a month. So I'd take home 1.7 every month, mil. And I fantasize about that all the time. You know what I mean? If you catch me staring out a window or something for a long period of time, it's me just sitting and imagining what I would do with $1.7 million this month. I'm trying to think, like, aside from buying a yacht and putting it in the middle of a pond in Oklahoma, and aside from that, I don't have a lot of use for that much money. I mean, I would probably pay off the houses. Um, I might buy a different. I don't know if I'd buy a different house. I'd wait to see how the market goes. I'd probably just pay off the houses I have. I would get a. I might get a new vehicle or used. I wouldn't spend it because half of the value leaves the moment you pull off the lot. You know what I mean, with depreciation. So I'd find a nice used vehicle, and I might spend one day a week dressing up like Ray Donovan, which my wife already gave me the Ray Donovan haircut. So if I get a blue suit and a sweet Mercedes sports car, I would go to fancy dinners and throw keys at the valet or something, like to prove that I belong. Just kind of treat lesser than people like shit, like you're supposed to when you get money, I think is what I would do for a day. I don't know. Let's find out. If you guys want to help me find out what I would do with 1 million people that subscribe, all you have to do is be one of them. You know what I mean? So go to patreon.com/conradio and you can help me realize this this dream, this manifestation of wealth. And you can help me do that, and I will take you along for the ride. Figuratively speaking, you guys will be able to see what I actually do with that much money. Will it be more entertaining than Major League Baseball? Absolutely. That part I can guarantee you. Because I do my best to try to make something entertaining when all I'm doing for 3 days in a row is trapped inside a 800 square foot home in the middle of Oklahoma as the snow makes the roads impassable, and you're just stuck here. And I have to think that this is much like what people must have felt during the year 2020 after March, when they were told to stay in their homes, and they did. See, I was one of those stupid people that was essential and had to still go to work, mainly because I didn't care whether somebody told me I was essential. When I got married and had children, I realized that my ability to bring home some sort of income and provide for my family made me essential. So when the pandemic happened, I continued going out and about. And so when people were like, oh man, I'm just doing a lot of board games and I'm, coloring pictures and I'm doing adult coloring books and I'm, building forts inside my house to try to stay busy and, get into some of those projects, Home Depot projects, honeydew list. I'm just tackling that, just trying to keep my mind occupied as I'm stuck inside my house. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Just go outside. But for the past 3 days, I understand it now because I'm stuck inside my house. It's been snow. Snow has closed school, virtual learning. We're Facebook meta learning down here in Oklahoma. And I'm stuck, dude. So it's been interesting. A lot of... Yesterday I said that I had to go back inside after the show and hang a ceiling fan, which I fucking did perfectly. Now, did I have to disassemble it a couple times because I didn't put the yoke on the right direction or I put the fan blades on upside down? Yes. That's part of the process, guys, when installing a fan. It does not matter how many times you've done it. It does not matter that you go slow and you think about it. You will put a fan blade on upside down. That's going to happen. You will hang it up on its little pedestal thing and realize, oh, that little yoke cover is not on and I have to take this apart. You're going to do that. You know what I mean? And that's what I did. And everything went smoothly as it should when hanging a fan. I turned off the power, finally got all the pieces in the correct place on the fan, got on the chair safely, OSHA approved, stood 1 foot on the table, 1 foot on the chair, hung it up there, wired it, put the little screws in the cover that hides the wires, and there was about a 1-inch gap next to the bezel that butts up against the ceiling. And it was because whoever had hung the previous light had just decided to knock a little bit of that ceiling away. You know what I mean? You know when you're hanging a light and you knock a hole in your ceiling to put the junction box for that light, and when you do so, you get the perfect square and you put your junction box up there, and you're just about ready to just put your light up, and you decide, fuck, let me just knock a little bit of extra square out around it. That's what the previous builder did. So they got their junction box in there, and then they took their hammer and they're like, well, just in case somebody ever wants to hang a traditional ceiling fan here, let's make sure that it looks like shit. And so they poked a bunch of holes around that box to where when I put my little bezel up, there's a 1-inch gap. And I thought, no big deal. I put some painter's tape around that bezel because it's nice and new. And I grabbed the caulk gun because, when in doubt, caulk it. And I caulked a perfect filler around that bezel and looked great. What I didn't know, because then I continued to use the remainder of that caulk against the trim in the ceiling, everything looked beautiful until today, when I realized that this was the caulk that my father-in-law had purchased, that one day that him and his beautiful bride came down to visit us. And when they did, he decided that he didn't want to sit around all day, so he got a caulk gun and was like shooting caulk behind my windows and stuff, which is fine. But he bought clear, you know what I'm saying? So what ends up happening is, as it dries, the beautiful white caulk that I spent so much time putting up dries clear, making it basically as if I didn't do anything at all. You know what I mean? I basically put up invisible caulk. So when I got up this morning to go admire my work from the previous day and looked up at my trim, I said, what the hell? It looks exactly the same, because I put Harry Potter's Cloak of Invisibility caulk up, So everything that I covered eventually dried and was invisible, so all my mistakes that I was covering, you could see clearly. Maybe even more, maybe magnified, because of the substance. So I said, fuck you, you're not going to get me today. And I popped open a can of paint, and I painted that shit. And it all turned out okay, except for if you're like me, which you are, because you battle the same shit that I battle and you don't make $5 million a month, every one of your little bezels on your fan looks like shit because, I wasn't able to use the perfect caulk filler around it, and I had to get up there and paint it, which means even though I taped it again, paint got in the little grooves that the caulk was there, and so basically it made it look like, you slapped it together on the ceiling again. So now it looks like, before it looked like a professional hung it. Now it looks like Conrad hung it. So, all's well that ends well. Now there's no mistake about it. And I know that they make fancy decorative rings that you can place against your ceiling and then put your fan or lighting fixture up. I understand that. To me, that's cheating. To me, that's fucking cheating. So, you go with the natural look. You go with the old natural look. You don't cover up that bush. You let it fly. So the kitchen fan is up. It looks pretty good unless you really look at it. Then it looks like shit. And then all the trim is caulked and painted if need be. At least for the remainder of that tube of silicone that was clear that my father-in-law had left. And I should have read, I should have read it, but I didn't. And so that's what happened. But I got it fixed up, and that's the most exciting thing that I can tell you that's happened since we last spoke. That's how. That, or I could tell you about my mattress. That's how boring it is. I did talk to Shannon this morning. Shannon is the co-host and the partner of the OK Taco Company, which is another show here on Con Radio. During normal weather conditions, we would be out and about driving to different towns in the state of Oklahoma and serving delicious Tex-Mex food to the members of that town. But with this cold snap that we're going through, we're idle. And I haven't bothered Old Mexico for the past couple days. I sent him the obligatory waxing video for his birthday on YouTube, and I sent my brother Caleb the same video because it was his birthday yesterday. And I texted Shannon this morning. I said, I just sent him a picture of, there's a woman that used to be, you can follow me if you want. There's a woman that used to be a man, or never identified as a man, but was born a man. And this person put a wig on and a dress on and put some makeup on and went to Jeopardy, the game show, after Alex Trebek died. And I guess did very well. I mean, probably because, men are smarter than women, but because this used to be a man, it won. You know what I mean? Because this is basically still a man's brain, at least in the trivia side. And the only reason I bring all this up is I'd never known this person, Amy. I'd never seen or heard, and I don't watch a lot of Jeopardy, so it's not their fault, but I'd never seen or heard of this person, and I was reading through the news of Russia's invasion to the Ukraine, and below it was the news that Amy, famous contestant on hit game show Jeopardy, is engaged. And that's when I saw the photo of Amy, I said, wow, to what? And I said that to myself, not to any parishioners or anything. I said that to myself, and she's engaged to a beautiful woman. So I sent Shannon a picture of Amy and the tweet of one massive woman's hand smothering another woman's hand, a normal-sized woman's hand. And he responded to me that he's sick. Not the guy, not Amy, not the girl guy. Shannon said him and his wife have been sick. And I think they've got COVID-19 or Omicrons. So I will not be venturing over to Random Dude Ranch today to get COVID-19. Don't you think it's kind of interesting that when Jeopardy contestants decide that their gender is different than what it was when they were born, okay? But isn't it interesting when the attraction or whatever's in your brain that makes you attracted to whatever it is you're attracted to, when that is traditional? You know what I mean? It's always been kind of interesting to me that Bruce Jenner was married for a very long time and had beautiful daughters as a man. And then decided, I've never been a man. I wanted to be a woman the whole time. Tricked you. Tricked myself, tricked you, but I'm going to do it. Changes into a woman, but then decides also that he still likes women to be lovers too. So changes into a lesbian, I guess. And it just seems like being a woman is harder as far as like the setup. You know what I mean? Where you have to do your hair, you have to do your makeup, you have to pick out a nice outfit if you want to be attractive. Like you don't have to do any of that stuff, but most likely you won't be as desirable as somebody that puts that kind of effort in. And that probably goes for men and women, but it seems that women have to do twice as much, maybe 3 times as much, maybe 4 times as much. And you would think that if the ultimate goal is to then get a sexy woman to be your partner, it would be a lot harder for you to become a sexy woman that used to be a man and then go get a sexy woman. Because it seems like the pool of hot women that want to date women that are not that hot but kind of hot that used to be men would be much smaller than the pool of hot women that just want to date men. I don't know. It's very confusing, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, only like 2 or 3 hours a day, but I always get to the end of that thought and in my mind go, I don't know, that's confusing because it seems like it would be more difficult. And maybe that's not the reason, you know. Sometimes people say that it's the challenge. Sometimes people say that that's why they want to do it, because it is so difficult. And I guess I understand that and respect that. But it just, for me, it's like, it's enough effort trying to stay a desirable man the way that I was born, let alone like completely changing that to the opposite, but then also becoming desirable as that. That's like adding a whole extra step. But God bless the Jeopardy people, because I guess, and I don't know what Alex Trebek used to be. If he used to be he could have been a woman probably. And I don't know if this lady's a host or not. But it seems like a lot of people on Jeopardy recently are transgendered. So God bless her. She got engaged. I don't know where the wedding's going to be. They're probably going to elope. I heard that they're looking at a couple places in the Middle East to get married, probably Afghanistan or Egypt or like Iraq or something. They're looking for like a nice bungalow to honeymoon in Iran, I guess. And so it's challenging, but so is the journey that they're on. So I doubt you'll be invited as a listener of this show to their wedding, but if you are, send my best to the Jeopardy contestants and tell them congratulations. That is tremendous. That's great. And I don't know what's wrong with Shannon other than he's got COVID. I think he's feeling better. He said that they've just been fighting a cold the past couple days, and I hope that means he's feeling better. I think we're going to try to get out there on Monday and Tuesday of next week and get back on the road and start selling some tacos. If we have not been to your town in Oklahoma yet, and you would like us to come to your town in Oklahoma, send us a message. I see that each and every day the downloads of the show are going up, and I appreciate that. And more and more people are listening, and thank you so much for doing that. So if you live in a different town than what we've been to, feel free to send a message on our Facebook page, the OK Taco Company, and say, hey, dog, I would like to eat your tacos sometime. Please come to this town, and we will. We'll have to talk to your mayor and your city council, whoever that is. You probably didn't even know you had one. A lot of these small towns, they don't even know they have a city council, and these people are getting together every fucking month. They dress in robes. Have you seen this? City council members of small towns in Oklahoma, they dress in robes, almost like cloaks, and they put black like face paint on to hide basically to hide in the shadows. So they'll pull the cloak way up over their head and it kind of sticks out in front of their face. And then they'll hold a candle and they'll all meet once a month to talk about the rules that they're going to impose on the citizens of that town. So, for example, if you live in a small town in Oklahoma like Kearney, Oklahoma, it's got a few hundred people in it, and you think, well, that's why I love living here. It's a small town. There's less rules. There's less government bureaucracy. Let me tell you this, that's not true. Because unbeknownst to you, it could be your fucking neighbor that's part of the city council. It could be your fucking mailman that's part of the Chamber of Commerce. And you don't even know this shit. And they're getting together every month, painting their faces black, painting their hands black, wearing big cloaks and carrying candles and chanting rules that they read from larger towns that are going to be imposed on your small community. And that's happening every day in some town in Oklahoma. So, and not probably just not limited to this state. I got to imagine that there's small towns in every state, and this is happening where groups of unelected, unimportant individuals get together and make basically lifestyle type decision changes for your community. And they think that they're doing it on the best interest of the community, when in fact, just the mere fact that they're doing it is a hindrance to your community. So, but I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'd say fight the power, but maybe we're beyond that. So maybe we're just stuck with underneath the microscope of power, and there's no way to combat it. So the only reason I bring all that up is you might think that it's easy for my taco truck to travel to your town, but sometimes those people that meet in the corridors of an old gym in the dark and make rules, they don't want me to come to your town. You know what I mean? For one day. So maybe find out what the restrictions are for vendors, and then send me a message on Facebook at the OK Taco Company. You could also listen to the OK Taco Company's podcast, the OK Taco Show, right here on Con Radio. All you have to do is subscribe on iTunes or Spotify, or if you want to support the journey to all 597 towns in Oklahoma, it's easy. Just join up with the Patreon page, patreon.com/conradio. All of the episodes of this podcast and the OK Taco Show and another show called Those Guys from Wichita are available there. So thank you very much for considering to support our journey. And maybe in some small way, we can fight the powers that be together by jumping on this ship with me. Sometimes I think that you got to have the utmost confidence in what you're doing, right? In order, like, there was a documentary about this woman a couple years ago named Elizabeth Holmes, and she was 18 years old. And she told people that had a lot of money, investors, venture capitalists, she would go to big dinners and she would go to a microphone on a podium and she would tell these people, I've invented a way to diagnose patients based on a blood sample that they will give at a Walgreens or a CVS. They'll stick their hand in a machine. It'll poke them like a diabetes type poke. It'll poke their finger, take their blood sample, spin it around, and spit back out like a diagnosis of whatever ailments that this person might have. And people were listening to her like, holy shit, that sounds incredible. Like, you can diagnose yourself and get treatment virtually through this box that's sitting next to a pharmacy at a Walgreens or a CVS. And it sounded great. And so she told all these people this shit, and they were like, fuck yeah. And they gave her a bunch of money. And so with that money, she bought a lab coat, and she bought like some other scientists' lab coats, and they all went to this bunker and got some beakers out and some hot dishes and some flames, and, got a little engineer guy that that put together one of these boxes that will stick your finger. And then she would have media and more investors and other people come to her bunker. And she would walk them around and be like, see, this is the part where we, put the blood in this kind of thing and spin it around, and it does this, and this is the box. And people are like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And the whole time it was all bullshit. She was not a scientist. She didn't know what she was talking about or doing, and nothing that she was making ever worked the way that she said it would or in any way. And she was just, I guess, in her mind, like, well, if I say it long enough and just say that I'm doing it and then try to do it, it'll eventually happen. And I just have to keep pushing the end date until what I imagined in my mind becomes reality. And it never did, because people eventually were like, hey, bitch, we can't just keep giving you money for something that you said you already knew how to do, but you didn't know anything. And so they sued her for billions of dollars. And I think that the case just happened, But the point is, not unlike the Jeopardy lady, she's got balls. You know what I mean? She's got balls, and she faked it until she made it, and she almost made it. I mean, the fact that everybody knows her name, and she'll probably make it again. And I don't think she even had to go to fucking prison, or if she did, she went to one of those nice ones. And so the reason I bring that up is last night, a new episode of the TV show Severance came out on Apple TV, and my wife and I have enjoyed the first 2 episodes. So I was waiting for my wife to get done doing whatever it is that women have to do to get ready for bed. And she was taking forever, and that's fine. And so I just turned on a documentary while I was waiting that I'd already seen before. I turned on the Kobe Bryant documentary titled Muse, M-U-S-E. And if you haven't watched it, it's a good documentary about him. And if you know all about Kobe Bryant, then it will just reinforce those things you already know. But the first time I watched it was after his death, and it gave you a different side of him, or maybe made you think of him a little bit differently, better, and just his intensity and his love for the sport, and that's all he really cared about. And so it's kind of fun to watch people that were the greatest at their chosen field, and even though there was moments throughout their careers, they took the hard road to make sure that they proved that they were worth what people thought that they were worth, and maybe even more. But he's not the most impressive person in this documentary. So what happens is it goes back to whatever the game was later in his career where he tore his Achilles. So during a basketball contest, he was running down the court and he did some sort of cha-cha-cha move, or like a hip shake or something, a twerk, and his Achilles popped. And he fell down and he said, ouch, and people were worried about him. But he went to the free throw line and he shot his free throws with no Achilles, sunk them both, tied the game, and then walked off the court. And a lot of people thought that's the last time he'll ever play basketball. That's a career-ending injury, especially at his age, 34, which I guess in basketball years is like dog years. You know what I mean? So they're like, this dude will never play again. And he started getting... he found some sort of Dr. Bombay that cut the Achilles out of a dead body and then put it into Kobe's body and sewed it all together. And so there's a pretty significant amount of this documentary where you get to see the scar and you get to watch a lady rub spoons all over it every day in the morning. And apparently that's stretching it and making it feel better. And it's kind of his his journey back to, can he play in the NBA again? And I like the spoon lady that rubs his ankle with spoons, but at about minute 32 of this documentary, he is in like a Planet Fitness or a YMCA or something in the morning. And he's throwing a medicine ball back and forth to a trainer. And he gets on one leg and he throws it, and he gets on the other leg and he throws it. You know what I mean? And he's strengthening that new ligament in his body. But the guy that I'm most impressed with is at the end of that segment, after he gets done throwing the medicine ball, he's changing his shoes. And he's sitting on a weight bench. Kobe's sitting on a weight bench changing his shoes. And there's a gentleman that is standing in one of those chairs that has a back and armrests and handles, but it doesn't have a seat. And so what you do is you prop yourself up on your elbows and you lift your knees and legs up in the air. Like your legs are suspended off the ground, and then you do crunches midair. And this guy, celebrity he most resembles is Colonel Sanders. But think of Colonel Sanders in athletic shorts and a t-shirt. So Kobe's doing this. There's like a voiceover happening, and it's got a picture of Kobe tying his shoes, a video of it. And this guy on one of those ab machines takes out his earbud and starts talking to Kobe Bryant. Like, oh man, it's really great seeing you here. And, I think it's really awesome that you're trying to go after it again. You know, like an old man giving advice to Kobe Bryant. Like, I think it's really cool that you're going to try to get back out there. And I see how hard you work here every day, and I'm rooting for you. Really sweet message from this old man. But where it took me to where I realized this guy's the greatest is Kobe says thank you and finishes tying his shoes. And as he lifts his leg up to tie his other shoe, the guy puts his earbud back in and then starts doing crunches, like with Kobe Bryant there. Dude, do you know how confident you have to be as a Colonel Sanders lookalike to take out an earbud that's not wireless? Take out an earbud as if what you're about to say will get a response from Kobe Bryant. And it did. So he took out an earbud and he said something to Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant answered him with a thank you. He puts his earbud back in. And he doesn't wait for Kobe Bryant to leave before he does his, average Colonel Sanders ab workout. He does it in front of him. Like, it would be like wearing a bikini. Like, what are you doing? You can't wear a bikini if Cindy Crawford is wearing a bikini or Sofia Vergara is wearing a bikini. Like, what are you doing? If Sofia Vergara walks out of a dressing room in a new bikini, wait for her to leave before you walk out of a dressing room. You don't walk out of the dressing room at the same time. I don't care who you look like, because it's not going to go well for you. Okay? And this guy just watched maybe one of the greatest athletes of all time, and certainly one of the greatest competitors of all time. He just watched this guy work out all morning, trying to get back to professional level fitness. And he put an earbud in and fucking did crunches in front of him. Like, I don't give a shit really who you are. Check out this Colonel Sanders crunch, Colonel Sanders crunch. It's like, holy shit, dude. You got to have some massive, you got to have freaking Jeopardy contestant-sized balls to do that. You got to have fake it till you make it Elizabeth Holmes style balls to do that. And he did. And I loved him for it. And I stopped and I wrote it down. I had to write it down. I said, man, that is Kobe Bryant did this whole documentary talking about his muse, and his muse was the game of basketball. That's what gave him this extra oomph. But the keys were by the dresser the whole time, Kobe. Your muse was that KFC man on the ab machine doing an abdominal workout in front of you. Like, he has the tenacity that you will never have or could never have, or any of us couldn't, you know? So I always, for whatever reason, things like that make me think of how awkward that would be. Because we've all been to a Planet Fitness or a YMCA, and one of the things that happens at those places, and you guys know this, is like you'll get a guy that comes in that clearly has been taking a lot of that Mark McGuire creatine. You know what I mean? That has been, he's on that Sammy Sosa whey protein program. And the animal reptile brain inside of most people, when that guy gets next to you with 80-pound dumbbells and starts just doing curls like there's no business, is even though for the past 3 weeks you've done 15-pound dumbbell curls, you go and grab a 45-pound dumbbell and you start doing curls with that. And it's like, why am I doing this? And it's going to tear your arms in half, and you're going to burn for 3 days, and it hurts so bad, and you shouldn't be doing it. And you know what? He knows it. And you know he knows it, but you still do it. And that's like what this Colonel Sanders guy did. There's no amount of crunches that you would be able to do to get Kobe Bryant's attention. Yet you still did it, and you know that, and Kobe knows that. And so whatever that chip is inside that dude's brain, that's what you want. To think like, I'm going to do these, and it's going to impress an NBA player. Not just any NBA player, the best ever. It's crazy, dude. So, not that I want to stay on sports the whole time, but I've told you guys before that because we're in Oklahoma and I'm a huge Oklahoma Sooners fan, when I finally got OK Taco Company on Twitter, most of the people that I follow on there are related to the football program in some way. So whether it be the coaches or current football players, and it's only because with Twitter now, I don't know if you've signed up for a new account recently, like you'll hit, so say you want to follow Kim Kardashian on Twitter for, I mean, you might as well jump off a fucking cliff. But if that's somebody that you wanted to follow, you would find her, you would click follow, and then a message would pop up. Most people that follow this person also follow, and it's like a package of people that are similar. So I'm imagining other sluts if you were to do that. Sorry, famous sluts. So when I got the Oklahoma Taco Company on Twitter, and I followed Bob Stoops, right, famous coach for the Sooners, it was like, you also want to follow all these other people. And I know all of them because I'm a huge fan of that team. So it's like, oh, yeah, that'd be cool. And then when you hit follow on that package, like more people show up, and eventually you're following 100 people that are all affiliated with the same interest, what Sooner football or Kim Kardashian's slut brigade or whatever. And because of this, you know, it's kind of cool because even though I've been a fan of that my whole existence, and I've had Twitter for a very long time, I've never really kept up with it. You know what I mean? I watch the games every week with my grandpa, and it's kind of a family thing. And that's the extent of it. You know, you cheer for your team, but then, okay, whatever. It's just a game. Who cares? And now I watch, like, just the trolls and the attacks and the celebrations and the practices and the thoughts and everything. You know what I mean? It's like I'm a insider on recruiting, and like I'm not a coach and they're not paying me, but now I feel like I know way too much about the program, that kind of thing. And the interesting thing is, the other day, a former player, I think it was Emmanuel Beal, who's an outside linebacker, and then there was Jeff Badette, who used to be a wide receiver for the Sooners and the Vikings, and I don't know. But there was like the sports card picture that come up on the Twitter machine of them being drafted. I was like, what? Not into the military or anything, but being drafted. And they're older players. I was like, what the They're being drafted into the USFL. And I was confused, and I scrolled by, and who cares? But then another one got drafted. And I was like, what? And then eventually there was some story about 2 former Oklahoma players being drafted in the USFL. It's like, what the fuck is a USFL? Like, I feel like that missed me. You know what I mean? I remember the XFL, and I think right before the XFL happened, I think they did a USFL again, and it went bankrupt or out of business. Are they doing that again? Like, how many times do we have to attempt this before we realize as a society that we only care about the NFL and college football, and that all of the other semi-pro teams, all of the other leagues that are, whether it be the Canadian Football League or the European Football League, if that's still a thing, it's never the same. It's never, even if they try to change the rules sometimes, and they try to make the field wider or narrower, or make it an arena field or whatever. They try to do all these little tricks, but it's always like you're watching ESPN Ocho or something when you watch those games. It never looks quite right. And even if you would think that there's such a pool of Colonel Sanders style athletes that were formerly great players at the collegiate level, or even serviceable players in the NFL, there should be enough of a pool of athletes to make a competitive product for people to watch. But for whatever reason, it never comes across that way. It always just looks bad. And that's coming from somebody, who could never compete with those guys. So it just looks bad. And like when I watch them, I think I could. When I watch the NFL, there's times when I'm like, sure, I could have knocked that pass down, or I could have tackled that guy, or I could have ran through that hole, of course. But for the most part, I'll watch the NFL and be like, wow, there's no way I could do any of that, right? When I watch the USFL or the XFL, I think I can do all of this better. And I shouldn't be thinking that, because these guys are tremendous athletes and significantly more talented than I am, and have worked on this craft for many, many years. And yet it looks like shit, And I don't know. The thought always, maybe that's what it is, because even when I found out that those guys got drafted, I was like, oh, cool. They're going to do it. So I get, even then, even though I've been fooled so many times before about this stupid USFL or the XFL, I still was like, oh, cool. It'd be cool if that worked out, even though it never does. And I think the only way that it could work out is if there was an ultimate Super Bowl, like an ultimate Super Bowl where the champions of the NFL played the champions of the XFL or the USFL. You know what I mean? Like, put some fucking... When you always tell us that it's a second-tier league to the NFL, we're never going to give it the respect. But if there was a way for them to compete against each other, even if it's like the worst team in the NFL playing the best team in the whatever the other league is, USFL, that would be at least entertaining. You know what I mean? That we could see how they stack up, and there would be a reason to watch finally. But if it's always like, oh, these are all the guys that got cut from their college team or from the pro team or whatever, and they weren't good enough, why would we want to watch them when we could just watch the guys that are good enough? You know what I mean? I think that's where the disconnect happens. It's still good football, supposedly, and still coached by professional level coaches and played by professional level caliber athletes, all that stuff, but it never comes across that way. So, I don't know. It'd be nice if it actually worked out, but it'd also be nice if at the end, and I don't want it to be like Thunder Lips or something, when fucking in Rocky 3, I think, when he had an exhibition match against Hulk Hogan. Like, I don't want the championship game against the Super Bowl winners and the USFL winners to be some sort of shit show where at the end they sacrifice the athletes in a pit of snakes or something. But I do want to feel like if you're going to invest your time developing a fandom for a completely new team and a new league, at the end of it, if your team was the best, you would want to feel like, how do they stack up against the best of the best, the NFL? And you would want to watch a game with that. And until that happens, I don't think that any new league that gets formed to play traditional American football will ever be viable. So that's just this guy's opinion. And I'm giving you that opinion from a shack in the middle of Prague, Oklahoma that's covered in snow. And there's no heater. And I'm wearing like 14 pairs of clothes right now. So take it for what it's worth, is what I'm saying. It's just an opinion, guys. You know, I've never won Jeopardy, not as a male or a female. So I don't know that much. But I have been engaged, so I could give advice on that to that guy from Jeopardy. Oh, here's something to think about, too, for those guys from Wichita, our other show. Zach had sent me a text. I'll pull it up here. A couple days ago, when we thought that we were going to have the show. So next week on Those Guys from Wichita, we're going to be playing a game called Inappropriate Game Show, okay? And so what we're looking for, and so you feel free to text me if you get an idea, 316-204-7858. Feel free to text me or email me at, you could probably just email me at oktacoshow@gmail.com would be a good email to use. You want inappropriate game show names. So, like, How Much for Your Daughter would be the name of a game show. Obviously, that's inappropriate. It's kind of playing into human trafficking or just even the practice of buying and selling humans. How much for your daughter? ? Exclamation point. I don't know who it's hosted by. I like to think of it as back in the 90s, there used to be a woman basketball player. I think it was Reggie Miller's sister. She did a lot of sports hosting, and I think she'd be a great host for How Much for Your Daughter. And there'd be game show music, and contestants from all over the world would send in videos trying to get on the show to sell their daughter for something. And it's inappropriate. So what is your inappropriate game show name? Or you could do like Order Lunch the Way Grandma Did. See, that doesn't necessarily have to be inappropriate, but it is. It can be. So think about that. That'll be a game we play on Those Guys from Wichita next week. And that show is Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Central to 9 p.m. Central, right on Facebook and YouTube. And just follow Con Radio Facebook page, and you guys can find that anywhere. I don't want to talk too much about that. I guess the last thing I'll leave you with today is on Disney Plus. Again, you're going to get a lot of. I haven't done anything for like 3 days. I've been trapped, so sorry. On Disney Plus, there's a movie with Ryan Reynolds in it called Free Guy. And it's interesting premise where it's similar to the Truman Show in the sense that basically there's a video game that's an open world game where players from all across the world enter this world, this video game world, and communicate with each other or fight each other or, steal cars or Grand Theft Auto style thing. Do challenges, stuff like that. Well, within that world, there's computer players. You know what I mean? There's people that are in that world that are just computer programs to fill out the world. So there's people that work at the bank or the coffee shop or police or whatever, and they're not actual players from the internet, from some other part of the world. They're just part of the game. Well, in this movie, the coders had put artificial intelligence into those computer players so they would learn and become aware. And so what had happened is one of the computer players had advanced in his artificial intelligence and had become aware and had fallen in love with another player that was a real person, but this guy doesn't know that he's not even a real thing because he has a conscience, And so it's interesting because the whole tagline of this is, would people be interested in watching players participate in a digital world if they're not in control of them, even if they know that those players aren't real anyways? And the answer is, we're already there. Because people will, if you can have a fandom of the way that you play Mortal Kombat, or you play, what is Half-Life or something so if people would watch you play Half-Life really well, or Sims, or whatever it is, or Fortnite, they're just watching a character. Now they know that you're in control of it, but is it that far of a stretch to think that, well, if they'll watch that character, even though they know that you're in control of it, would they watch that character if nobody was in control of it? But that character did progress, and that character got better and became more aware and all this different stuff. And I think that people would watch it, but it becomes kind of scary because I don't know how far off we are from that. And, you have this computer simulated thing where maybe as a viewer, you start getting feelings for something that's not real anyways. But if you think it's real, or if you believe it's real, or maybe it doesn't even matter, going back to the beginning, there's a woman that's getting married to another woman that used to be a man who just won Jeopardy. You know what I mean? What's harder to explain? The fact that you're in love with a avatar that participates in a game, or the fact that you used to be a man but you still like women, So you're not a man, you're a lesbian, and you're really good at trivia. Like, both of those are kind of weird things, you know? Can they both exist? I think so. I think they can, and I think they're going to. And I think that's what Mark Zuckerberg is up to. You know, instead of wasting his time buying goddamn space fuel to, you know, be like Richard Branson and go up into the ozone and look down at the people that can't afford it. Mark Zuckerberg he's building a goddamn Wall-E world, you know? He's got Facebook Meta. People aren't talking about that commercial from their stupid Super Bowl ad, but he's going to fucking meta us. And do we have a choice? No, dude, the city council's already had a meeting about it. You know, if you're the city, do you want to spend money plowing roads, or do you want people to sit at home when it's fucking cold out and then you don't have to plow the roads? Yeah, you want them to sit at home, be safe, don't leave, sit at home. Okay? Well, they have to leave to go make money. Well, not if we make it at home. Make it at home. Well, there's only so many things that they can do. Okay. Well, just send them money then, so they stay at home. So we don't have to do anything. Well, if they're going to be at home and they're just going to be on their computer, they might as well blur their background so you just see their face. Can you do that? Yeah, we can do that. Well, could we just change their face? Yeah, we could do that. So now everybody's going to be good looking, and they're all going to be sitting at home on Zoom calls like it matters. And then what if you're just talking to an AI person the whole time and you thought it was your fucking boss? It's not your boss. That's a computer. We're there, baby. That's happening. You know, this podcast could be AI eventually. You take 12 years of all of the shit that I've said on mic, recorded, and put out there. You're telling me there's not a program that could, like, pretty much predict where I'm going with this? I think there is. And we're almost there, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg. But, anyways, hopefully I can come back on with Shannon later this weekend. Until then, have an okay day, and don't let your meat loaf.